Oh, my lands, here we are on another show, another episode, and welcome to you. My name is Jay Connor, the Private Money Authority. And here on the show, we talk about real estate investing. We talk about private money and getting funding for your deals. And I have amazing guests. I mean, if you are brand new to the show, I'm so excited to have you. A special welcome to you for being a first-time viewer or listener. We're on YouTube, Facebook, also iTunes on the podcast. And as I said, I have amazing guests. Today is no exception. Wow, do I have an amazing guest and a fantastic friend. In fact, my guest is known as the Real Estate Underdog. Yes, my guest has been named by Time Magazine, and I quote, as a trailblazer in the real estate industry. Now, listen to this. My guest went from delivering pizzas to a 9-figure real estate career. It was featured in Forbes and Time Magazine, and she did this she was only 28 years old accomplishing this. Well, in addition to that, she's a real estate developer, actually by trade, and she has sort of now transitioned into becoming a real estate and life strategist. And she does that by coaching, she does it by speaking, and she has also built an international real estate team. Now, in addition to my podcast, she also has her own podcast. And let me tell you, has she got a fantastic podcast. You're definitely going to want to follow her. It's a world-renowned podcast. It's called Underdog. And when she first launched her podcast, it went to the top % of all the podcasts in the world, and it's now streamed in over 65 countries. Well, she is dedicated to empowering the world through real estate, building different revenue streams, and igniting the underdog that all of us have inside of us. So with that, I want to welcome to the show my good friend, Pamela Bardhi. Hello, Pam. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Jay. How are you, my friend? Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. I adore you. So this is amazing.
Well, you are amazing yourself. I'm just so excited to have you on. Your energy, your personality, your positive outlook, and most of all, your awesome glasses that you wear.
Thank you, Jay. I love yours too. Seriously. I love
Well,
yours.
my wife, Carol Joy, and I, we were so blessed to get to meet you. Actually been less than a year ago, but met you we're in a mastermind together. That's just one of the great benefits of being in a mastermind of like-minded people. You just get to meet amazing people like yourself. And, Pam, I don't know who in the world came up with the quote, opposites attract. That's like stupid. Like, I want to hang around people that are like me, right? So here I have Pamela Bardhi hanging out, and I'm just so excited to have you, Pam. So, Pam, you have got quite the amazing story. But first, let's just start with, how did you get into real estate to start with?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jay, for having me. So basically, I started in real estate in a very interesting way, right? So I owned 2 restaurants by the time I was 21, and I was working about 13 to 16-hour days between the two of them. And I remember real estate developers coming through, and also like my uncle who was in the real estate business, he started flipping. This was around like 2012, 2013, where there was still some overflow from the 2008, 2009 crisis, in terms of like foreclosures and stuff. And essentially what I would see these developers do, and my uncle, was get into these flips, into these renovation projects where they would buy a property, fix it up, and then sell it. And so I saw the numbers and I was like, these numbers are wild. I'm like, this is a great thing. And the way they made it seem was like that you could create a different revenue stream off of it, having your money work for you, and like all of that kind of thing. And I saw the numbers and I was like, people are making 50, 75, 100, 150K per flip or more, depending on what kind of value they're adding to it. And so say to myself, I'm like, wow, for me to make that type of profit net in the restaurant business is going to take a lot. So and I kept hearing the average millionaire has 7 different streams of revenue. Meanwhile, I only had, 2, and I was in debt from starting up the restaurants. I was over 100,000 in debt. So I'm saying to myself, it wouldn't hurt to learn a new skill set and start making my money work for me and building a different revenue stream. So I started flipping houses when I was 21. I went to every seminar, webinar, conference, was just up researching whatever I could when I wasn't working in my restaurants. So like every waking moment that I had aside from my restaurants, I was dedicating to learning about real estate. And eventually I hired a coach who helped me learn the game in my local market. And then from there, did a few deals with him. And then essentially from there, I went on to do my own thing. But that was kind of the journey into it. And honestly, I didn't think I was going to go into real estate full time. And that's the crazy part. A lot of people think like, I've always been in real estate. That's what I studied. And that's what I did. It's like, oh no, I had my 2 restaurants. All I was doing was trying to build a different revenue stream through flipping houses. But eventually it just turned into this whole empire of its own. Honestly, it was a hell of a process. Well, and I didn't anticipate it. And eventually I phased out of my restaurants and then just stuck directly to real estate. But, basically breaking out into the construction world, became a licensed general contractor. Flips, of course, real estate development was the core of what I was doing. And then I got my real estate license. You always find these complementary businesses that kind of tie into yours as you grow your brand and your business. So that's how it started for sure. 21, flipping houses, had no idea what I was doing. That's for damn sure.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, you started doing real estate when you were 21 years old. Amazing thing happens. I mean, as I did in the intro just a moment ago, by the time you were 28 years old. So, you've got this podcast called, Underdog. Why is it that you are attracted to the underdog that is in all of us? And before you answer that question, tell everybody what you mean by the underdog.
For sure. So I identify as the real estate underdog. So to me, it's been my identity my whole life, right? Like my family represents the underdog story, represents the American dream, which is an underdog story, if you think about it, right? To be able to come to this amazing country with nothing and build everything from the ground up. I mean, that's what my parents did. Basically, came here when I was 5 years old. They won the visa lottery to come here. They didn't know how to speak English, didn't know anything about anything, to be honest. None of our family was here. They had no job security. I was 5 years old and my brother was a newborn. They came here and they figured it out. But this is the type of country that we live in, that we have these opportunities if you hustle hard enough to create and be somebody, right? So to become the underdog. So I've seen my parents rise as the underdog. They've then empowered and uplifted me. And basically I went from nothing to something as well. And now I'm helping other people do the same. And when some people say underdog, mine is the true underdog story, right? From ground up, and the phoenix and the whole cliche thing that you want to talk about an underdog. But when I say there's an underdog in all of us, I truly mean that we've all faced our battles. We've all faced challenges, and, everyone is going through something, and you just never know who is going through something, and you just can't make assumptions, right? So when I say the underdog in all of us, I mean, the challenges that we all go through. We've all been faced with something. We've all been back up against a wall for something, whether it's relationships, whether it's your career, whether it's family life, whether it's whatever. We all have our things. And so just a reminder that we can all rise above that and take it to the next level. So everyone's underdog story is different. That's because we all face different challenges, mental, emotional, all the things. So my goal is to uplift the underdog in every situation, essentially. So that's me.
So I know part of what you are passionate about is, working with other people to push through, through that underdog experience that, as you say, all of us have had multiple underdog experiences in our life. What are some of the key strategies, the key coaching tips that you give your clients on, if someone is stuck, if someone is still living in the past, if someone, just is having a hard time getting over whatever that thing was that they lived through, and mentally and emotionally, they're still living in it. What's your advice on how to get past that stuff and push through it?
100%, Jay. I love that question. Thank you so much for that. So essentially, I mean, life comes down to this, and business really comes down to this. And this is my favorite quote. And I heard Tony Robbins say it. And I know everyone quotes Tony, but it's so true that business is a spiritual game. It is 100,000% a spiritual game, right? Because you have to be worthy of receiving and building, and that's all of the things. So what I teach my clients and anyone that I interact with or anyone who listens to my show and all that, I'm a deeply spiritual person, deeply spiritual person. So I always talk about the alignment of mind, body, and spirit all in one, whatever that means to you. Everyone has their own belief systems and their ideologies and all the things. And I respect and love all of that. Everyone has their own perspective and it's fantastic. But at the end of the day, you've really got to align the three of them. If you're stuck somewhere, there's got to be something in your life that's causing that, right? Is it a family issue? Is it something going on with business? Is it, because when people say that they're broke, I know that the core of the problem is that they don't believe in their self-worth. That's really the core of it, right? And we all chase money because we think that money creates a lifestyle for us that's always going to make us happy no matter what. But the truth is, you really got to do this deep work within yourself to be worthy, to feel worthy, right? Because we are worthy. It's just, do we feel it, right? And that affects how much is in our bank account and all of that. Because everyone in the world chases money and money. They're not chasing that, really, when you really sit down and think about it. They just want to be somewhere where they belong and they just want to be happy, right? There's really not a monetary value to that. But as you know, Jay, with that money comes abundance. When you feel worthy of receiving and when you give to the world too, when you're also a giver, right? Law of reciprocity. You give to the world always gives back. It's the law of karma. It's the duality in the universe, I like to say. But truly, that's what it comes down to. And what I give as the tips is really like, sit down with yourself. It's really just personal development work that we sit down and we're like, what's really going on, right? In your mind, in your body, in your spirit, what is not aligned here? And how can we figure this thing out? And then lay out, basically a goal action plan based on the hopes and the dreams, right? And we try to align everything together. So yeah, it's a bit of a process that I put people through. And it's a process that I do with myself. I'm like, what's going on with me today? It's like, oh, I need some sleep. All right, I'm going to get some sleep and then I'm back in alignment. I'm ready to go, right? So it's just, sometimes it could be simple things or sometimes it's some deep emotional things that you got to clear with yourself. I mean, we all have a lot. We carry a lot sometimes. And so that, we don't realize how much that affects us at the end of the day. So yeah, that alignment of the mind, body, spirit is the most critical because it affects everything else.
You said something a moment ago about, people running around chasing money, and that's really not what it's about. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think about, I've been in the business world now for over 40 years. And I think about particularly years ago, like when I was in my 20s and 30s, when I would have an opportunity come along and my only reason that I was interested in getting involved was for the money. I never got off ground zero. It never launched. It never went anywhere because, as you just said, and I'll paraphrase, it's never about the money, right? People may think it is, but it's never about the money. And every time that I have been passionate about what I'm doing, and there is a business plan that supports that passion, that will print money and make money, but I got to be passionate about it first. I mean, you can be passionate about something and be stone cold broke, right? But I still say passion comes first. And when the business plan, actually makes sense and is going to make you money because of your passion, then it works every time, right? And I also really appreciate you saying about being in alignment. I learned this phrase that psychologists use, and I just learned this phrase, I don't know, some years ago, called cognitive dissonance. And I'm sure in your line of work, you know what cognitive dissonance is. That's a real fancy phrase, which means nothing more than my actions and my behaviors are not in alignment with my core values. And so my core values, as I'm sure you work with people on, my core values have got to be in alignment with my behaviors, my actions, my thought process, or I'm just going to be a miserable mess, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely, Jay. I'm telling you. And
Now,
anytime you deviate, you notice, your body notices, your whole soul and your being knows it when you're disconnected from where you're supposed to be. That's why a lot of people feel miserable, because that disconnect, they're not
exactly.
in alignment.
So speaking of passion, I mean, you're way too young to have as many experiences as you already have, but that's a compliment, by the way. But what are you passionate about these days? In your personal life, in your business, whatever. I mean, what's really got you all excited and pumped?
Yes. I mean, honestly, I just, the world is shifting a lot. And I'm seeing entrepreneurship on the rise. I'm seeing people own their power. People are stepping up. Like, things are very different than when I grew up. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still some darkness in the world, but I mean, without lightness, without light, there is no darkness, right? So it's that whole duality thing that I still struggle to comprehend, right? But for me, it's seeing people rise up and own their power and really shift the game and become entrepreneurs and just like break through all the things. Like, I'm just seeing so many people step up and just, I can say one example that when I go back to my alma mater, when I go back to Stonehill College and I speak, I see the students, a lot of them are talking about like having a side hustle and like investing and like working smarter, not harder. And it's like, those are not the conversations that were being had when I was in college, about 10 years ago. And seeing that whole change and that whole dynamic has been super cool. And to be part of the collective mission that leads the next generation and beyond, uh, of this whole new generation of business and the way like everything the world is being run, I think has been the coolest thing. And what I'm also excited about in the real estate realm is there's a lot of shifts and changes in the real estate realm as well. I love adding value to properties. That's like my jam. I love looking at something and figuring it out, because every property has its own code, if you will. It has its own what's its highest and best, and you can get super creative. Like, the retail markets are shifting, industrial is shifting, there's all different kinds of things that are happening so fast right now. There's short-term rentals, there's Airbnbs, and you can get super creative. You can buy land and literally do a glamping site with it. I mean, like, the opportunities are endless. And what I'm seeing in the world right now is super exciting. So both in like in the business realms of all the new technology and all the passion and just the intuitive minds that are coming into the game, and being part of that mission and kind of leading that. And then what's happening in the real estate markets. I mean, some people are horrified, like looking at office buildings and, converting them into like different creative spaces and things like that. But to me, that's super exciting. So that's what I'm all about.
You started in real estate when you were 21 years old.
Yeah.
What were some of your early struggles and lessons learned?
Oh boy, Jay, taking me back. Well, first off, I'm always learning. I'm still learning. Every day is a new process, and it's a new responsibility, if you will, right? As we're growing, we're learning constantly, or else we're dead, right? So one of the earliest things that I remember, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I was brand new to the space. Like, I didn't know anything about construction. I didn't know anything about real estate. To the extent that I knew about real estate, it was really that, like, as a real estate agent selling houses. I didn't know about investing. I didn't know any of that. That's why my coach was a critical piece to my success, because I got the hand holding on everything, because there's so many moving parts, especially in real estate development and flipping. But the biggest mistake that I made, 100%, and I still made mistakes even with a coach, right? But it's just they weren't as bad, right? They were slight compared to what could have been major, right? Because there's some deals that it could just knock you off your feet, because we're not talking hundreds, we're talking thousands if you mess up on a deal, and a lot of people end up losing their shirts, and then a lot of people end up making a lot of money. So for me, estimating the construction budgets, I think was one of the toughest things. And budgeting, like, that was super difficult for me, because I didn't have a baseline. If you don't have anything to really model it after, it becomes a whole nother ballgame. So this property that I got into, I mean, I estimated, I think it was like 80K. It really ended up to be 120. But luckily, my coach left like a big contingency period, and I still made a lot on that deal. But still, budgeting, I think, was the number one thing. And I think I didn't delegate sooner. I thought I could do everything. I thought I was the entrepreneur, boots on the ground, hands on kind of thing. And it was like, I could have scaled out so much faster, so much sooner had I not, done that. And then of course the budgeting is the first one. Like that one was, because I'm like, get me away from the numbers. So it's like, I want to talk to people. I want to create. I want to do, I want to do the things. Get me away from these spreadsheets. I don't want to see them, like that. So those are the couple of the mistakes that definitely I had in the beginning. But I think one of the strongest qualities that I possess is the simple fact that putting my ego aside, I think has been one of the most critical elements to my success, to say, okay, like you tell me, I don't know anything, you tell me what I need to do at this point, so being coachable, I think that was one thing that saved me. But listening sooner, even with that, still I could have listened sooner. So
Yeah. Well, you've done a lot of projects, and I know I'm the private money guy, known as the Private Money Authority. I love private money.
yes.
I'm guessing you're going to have to tell me because I don't know, but I'm guessing in your real estate investing career, you probably raised some private money, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I started. I was 100K in debt, Jay, in the beginning when I started in real estate development with my restaurants. Actually, over that, I was over 100K in debt, and essentially, I didn't have anything extra. I had just come out of undergrad. I was going to school in tandem, like whenever I had a free minute, like nights, while I had the two restaurants, while I was getting into real estate investing. So when people give me the excuses of like, oh, I don't have time, I'm like, you don't even. When I was 21, I was all over the place. I barely slept. But my family, was willing to invest in me, at least a down payment. We had to go private, we had to go hard money for the first loan, but at least I had enough to sustain the project, to keep the project going, put the down payment in, and still make interest payments as I was going through these projects, for sure. That
Yeah.
was a huge thing.
Right. Did you ever raise any private money like from individuals,
Yeah.
aside from hard money? So you've raised private money from individuals, right?
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yep.
What,
For the down
what,
payment to pay the hard money. That's how I started. Like it was like it was a lot. It was a
right.
lot. Basically, any extra capital that I needed was funded by private money, essentially. Family,
Right.
friends, all of that.
So what advice would you give to a real estate investor that perhaps hasn't raised any private money from individuals in the past? What advice would you give them on how to begin attracting private money into their world? Of course, I coach this all the time, but I'm interested in your take on it since you've actually done it as well.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, well, first off, you should be talking to Jay. That's step number one. But I would say, for me, it was really about knowing the numbers, right? Because you have to treat them like investors. Like this is a business. You have to know the numbers like the back of your hand. And for me, when I was first starting, I didn't really know my numbers. And I had my coach to lean on that could confidently say, like, hey, I've done this for a really long time. Here are what the numbers look like. Here's the construction budget. Here's what we're buying it for. Here's what we're going to put into it. And here's what we should be selling it for. And here are the numbers and the risk levels. We should be in and out of this project within 6 to 9 months. We're holding your money for a year maximum, things like that. And, here's your percentage and things like, that was super critical. So knowing and understanding those numbers. So if you've done it, if you have done real estate development before or any type of real estate project, your numbers, great. You can pitch that to your investors and keep it business. Emotion needs to be left out of it, right? But if you don't know your numbers and you're stepping into this for the very first time, I hope that you partner with somebody who knows exactly what they're doing, or you have a coach that's walking you through the process, because these are like, there are so many moving parts in real estate development. Yes, a lot of money to be made, but at the same token, there is a lot of risk and there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving elements. So if you're not a pro at it or don't have a coach with it, I would recommend that you at least JV, joint venture, with somebody who does, because there are so many different ways to creatively lay out deals. And I mean, you could even try to work a deal with the seller as well. I mean, there's all types of different things, Ron LeGrand with his with his terms things, right? So there's always ways to creatively lay out the deal. It's just a matter of knowing your numbers at the end of the day, because you can lay out whatever terms you want when it comes to that, but know your numbers 100%.
Well, and I'm glad you gave that advice. I mean, I tell my real estate investing coaching clients all the time, you know, who is going to invest with you? You know, what private lender is going to loan you money on a deal unless you're like confident in what you're doing and or at least come across confident, right?
Right.
And it's going to be very hard to come across confident unless you do what you said, Pam, just a second ago, and that is knowing your numbers. I mean, you know, it's going to be very hard to be confident in, you know, talking with a private lender or whatever without knowing those numbers. And Pam, let's right now give a free gift away. So I just finished writing on this subject of private money. I just finished writing, and I know you know about it because when you had me on your show, I offered it up. I just
Yes.
finished writing this money guide called 7 Reasons Why Private Money Will Skyrocket Your Real Estate Business. And let's give it away for free. You can go to www.jayconner.com/money guide and download this private money guide, and it will get you and help you get a lot of private money very, very quickly. So, Pam, my next question is on my lens, where in the world do you get your drive from? That's part one. That's part one. I mean, you are a highly driven personality type A, you know, to the hilt, right? So you are driven. So where do you get your drive from? That's the first part of the question. The second part of that question is, if someone feels like they just don't have much drive, they just don't have much get up and go, is there a way to change that core part of that personality or not?
Mhm. Absolutely. Jay, thank you for the question. Those are amazing questions. So, first and foremost, I mean, my drive comes from 100%. My number one motivator is always my parents, right? Like watching them build from the ground up since I was a little kid and what they sacrificed for me to become who I am. I mean, they barely had enough money and they would put me through private schools. Whenever business I started, they were behind me funding it. You know, like they didn't have all this money, but whatever they had, they literally invested in me. So it was my job and my motivation to basically make sure that their sacrifice was 100% worth it, right? And to see them proud, I think, is the greatest thing because they did something that altered the course of my life, right? They came here, they put everything on the line and sacrificed for me. So now it's my duty to, take it to the next level and make sure that they know that their sacrifice was worth it to come here and build something and hustle as hard as they did. So that's a number one motivator for me. And then, I'm just inspired by so many people. I didn't realize my story impacted as many people as it did until I started sharing it for the sole purpose of just showing people like, hey, listen, if I can do it, like it's totally possible for you. And not that every journey is the same, right? Because we're all different people. We walk different trails in different lives. So please, like, don't compare yourself to anybody else. But know that you can be up against all odds. Know that, you write your own destiny and you can create and manifest the life that you want if you believe and you work hard enough, honestly. And I know that's super cliche, but I've seen the American dream built right before my very eyes. And it's the coolest thing in the world to see. So that drives me, and I want to help other people get there. So that's definitely a big driver for me, is to be able to get to this level at such a young age so that I can help more and more people get there and live their best lives. Because, the second part of your question that you mentioned, Jay, was how do you get motivated? I mean, honestly, when you start to realize that you were put on this earth for a reason and that you're granted very specific gifts and you're very unique in who you are and what you do, that's a huge motivator. I think that digging deep within yourself and asking yourself, like, what is really your why? Like, why do you get up every day and do what you do? Right? Do you have a specific vision? And those who don't have that motivation is they don't have the vision built. If you don't know what you're working towards, how will you ever be motivated to get there? Right? But these reflective questions are not something that's specifically taught in school, to really dig deep within yourself and say, hey, what do you actually want? If you ask most people, what is it that they actually want? Jay, I'm sure you'll get this answer. I don't know. That's the problem. If you lack vision, you will lack direction, and therefore you will not be motivated. So my biggest inspiration is, sit down with yourself, get away from everybody, get away from your phone, all the things, and just stay clear and ask yourself and just have a conversation with yourself, God, higher power, whatever you believe in, right? And just say, hey, what is it that I want? Why am I here? And ask yourself these questions. And it sounds insane, but they do come. and you start to paint that picture of the vision of what it is that you want. And sometimes life happens, right? Things don't have, it's never a clear, direct path. There's always obstacles in the way, right? But at least you have a clear vision of what you're working towards. And I think that that's super important. So the way that you combat that anti-motivation, I want to say, is you basically create a vision for yourself and really ask yourself what it is that you want and dig deep and what's stopping you from getting there. So,
Pam, you mentioned at the beginning of the show that you heard at an early age that very successful entrepreneurs or millionaires, I think you said, have multiple streams of income. So what are your multiple streams of income these days?
absolutely. It's no surprise that I love real estate. So I have 14 properties that I basically built value add, and I'm working on acquiring more, expanding the portfolio into some industrial, some commercial, things like that. Right now I have pretty much mostly residentials in my portfolio. I have some commercial. Getting into crypto, it's hard for me. You know how it is, Jay. When you're in real estate, you have a real hard time investing in anything else. Honestly, but my ventures have been one that I've been building different streams of, and my next one will be building an actual real estate school, one where people can get their real estate license, which I think will be really, really cool. And the rental portfolio is definitely a huge one, and then I do have different streams in life insurance and a little tiny bit in stocks. Most of my holdings are in real estate, though. Definitely 100%. But the key to that, though, is always making sure you're not over leveraged. That's also another thing. And complementary businesses if you can, and affiliate relationships wherever you are. So those are kind of where my different revenue streams kind of lie. Yeah.
Amazing, Pam. So Pam, I know that I have a listener right now in particular that is wanting to work with you because they're not exactly sure what they want out of life. They're not sure exactly, how to get there. How can they connect with you, Pam?
Absolutely. So, the best way would be definitely send me an email. I'm always on my email or my social media or anything like that. So, if you're on Instagram, it's Pamela_Bardhi, Bardhi. LinkedIn, definitely for sure. And then my email, Jay, which I'll give everyone my personal email that they can contact me, which is Pamela@themoshegroup.com as well. So that's PAMELA at the Moshe Group, THEMOSCHE Group.com. And I'd be more than happy to connect. Thank you so much.
And that email again, one more time, Pam, just a little bit slower because it sort of like ran together.
No worries. It's a long one too. I'm so sorry. So it's Pamela, PAMELA at the THE Moshe, MOSCHE Group.com.
That is awesome. Pam, you've been an amazing guest here on the show. Parting comments.
Oh, Jay, it was an honor. Seriously, you are amazing. I love your personality. I love everything that you are. You're incredible, and you're just doing amazing things for the world. So thank you so much for having me, my friend. Appreciate you.
Pam, thank you for coming on. Well, there you have it, my friend. Another episode of this show. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority. And before we sign off, I want to ask a favor of you. And that is, I really appreciate likes, shares, subscribes, 5-star reviews on iTunes. And if you happen to be watching on YouTube, be sure and click that bell so you don't miss out on being notified on upcoming episodes. So there you have it. This here is to taking your success to the next level. And we'll see you right here on the next show. Thank you.